Hello, my name's Chelsea, and for my final project and famous figure, I opted to go for Winston Churchill. More specifically, how he navigated politics, his military service, and artistry through his abnormality. Now, specifically, why Churchill? He was born November 30th, 1874, and he wore many different hats, including serving as the English Prime Minister, authoring multiple literary works, and composing numerous paintings during his lifetime and career. His career in particular spanned from 1900 to 1964, up until his death, and he held many positions like Press of the Board of Trade, Home Secretary, and even served as Prime Minister 2 different periods, also serving both in World War I and World War II. I selected Winston Churchill specifically because I felt like he was such a well-rounded person, and there were many different aspects of both his personal and public and social life that I could investigate as far as mental illness was concerned. Moving into biological factors. Much of Churchill's medical history is assumed based on piecing together different literary works throughout his time. There wasn't really any one document or piece of evidence that I could look at and really pull a lot of information from. A lot of it was combined looking at different letters from both his wife and his doctor and other third-party accounts. One of the biggest things that jumped out to me was that it was assumed he may have suffered from a cerebrovascular disease. That type of disease can definitely attribute to different changes in brain function as well as emotional regularities. While there isn't any one piece of work that would 100% confirm this type of disease or diagnosis for him, something of this sort would point in the right direction of his different mood swings and what ultimately leads me to his possible bipolar 2 diagnosis. It's also rumored that his parents were suspected of dealing with their own abnormal mental health concerns. There isn't a lot of research out there regarding his mother and his father specifically. However, his mother and his father are spoken about in passing a lot throughout the different works that Churchill is featured in, and they were rumored to have dealt with their own personal mood swings and difficulties regulating their emotions. Socially, Churchill was born into quite a political and socially busy and involved family. His parents kept him at a great distance emotionally, though. He was very much a boarding school kid. He grew up like I think a lot of children did in that period who were born into very socially involved families. He grew up in the boarding school setting. He was raised by essentially somebody other than his parents, like a nanny. And I think that had a lot to do with his emotional dysregulation because Churchill was quite an emotional kid. He was known for his sensitivity. He was known for being very keen, yet he still performed very poorly in school. He loved English and he loved history, which I thought was really cool to come across because it practically sets up the tone for who he becomes as a person and the type of role he plays throughout his life and his career. I think it also goes to show how he navigated his abnormality or his mental health so well while still balancing his personal life and his career as he gets older. I think his lack of emotional needs being met as a child definitely plays into his inability to balance out and control his emotions and his mood swings as he gets older. I think one of the biggest areas of information that I missed regarding Churchill, and a lot of information that I didn't have a lot to go off of, was honestly regarding his younger years. Kind of from his birth to his up until his young adult age. A lot of the majority information known on Churchill is often pulled from his own personal journals or correspondence with other people or even third-party accounts of his behavior. So I think a lot of that missing information is just simply due to the fact that people didn't know to leave notes on him. People weren't walking around, writing essays or leaving personal journals on the whereabouts of a middle schooler or an elementary schooler. And of course it becomes different once they're older, or he becomes a more prominent political figure. But in terms of having third-party accounts or having that additional information in other areas or perspectives from other people, that was one of the biggest details that I was missing in regards to information on him and understanding how to process his possible mental disorders and how he went about his mental health. Now moving into DSM-5 criteria and kind of the more modern day application of what he may have been experiencing, there was one piece of work in particular that I came across that absolutely made me stop and really think. And it was specifically an essay written by Anthony Storr, the individual I quoted here. He was a psychiatrist that wrote a paper or an essay on Churchill and his mental health in 1965. And I found his work so fascinating because it was essentially what we're doing here. It's creating a case study on Churchill and going over the different accounts and third-party tellings of Churchill and his personality and behavior, and essentially producing a possible diagnosis for him. And one of the quotes that came of Mr. Storr's essay was, "The psychiatrist who takes it upon himself to attempt a character study of an individual whom he has never met is engaged upon a project which is full of risk." And I felt this super important to apply here because it was a great reminder to remember that these figures and these individuals are not people that we can place in a clinical setting. These aren't individuals that we can actively observe and speak with and get to the root cause of their different mental health issues. And I find it very important in these types of projects to stop and remember that, because essentially what Anthony Storr did and what we're doing now for this final is kind of just speculating and piecing together different parts of puzzles to kind of get a better picture of somebody in their life and how they might have navigated abnormal mental health. And I just found it really fitting for this kind of assignment to see similar work being done even, a year or a couple years after Churchill's death. After a bit of investigating and research for this project, I best found and believed that Winston Churchill might have been suffering from bipolar type 2 disorder, most specifically because of accounts made by his wife. According to different journals and letters, Churchill presented with some of the many common